In this episode of Locked On Capitals, the Washington Capitals fall flat in game number 2. Let's talk about it next on Locked On Capitals.
Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, and I want to thank you for making this your first listen or view of the day. Yes, this is also a video podcast on YouTube, so check it out. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So, wow, what a rough game. The Capitals fall to the Panthers 5-1. We'll talk about that tonight. What went wrong? How could it be such an about face from game number 1? We're going to talk about the impact of Tom Wilson and what a noticeable thing it is that when he's not in the lineup. And then we'll talk about goaltending. Yes, once again, goaltending is going to rear its ugly head. We'll talk about that tonight. So to start off, the Washington Capitals had a rough night. Make no mistake about it. They lost 5-1. And the story of this game is that there is not that compete level that the Florida Panthers have. Why is it that the Florida Panthers are bringing this huge physical game and the Washington Capitals are pretty much just letting them get away with whatever they want? Garnet Hathaway was getting rubbed out into the side of the boards. Oshie was getting hit. No one was doing anything. And Gudas is doing Gudas things again. If you saw that in the game, he kind of picked Hathaway up off the ground and threw him onto the ice. They both got penalties on that play, but what are the refs seeing? What is going on out there? And where is the Washington Capitals physical game? Before this season started, everyone talked about how big the players are on the Washington Capitals. You know, they got these big frames and Tom Wilson and Alex Ovechkin and Anthony Mantha. And it's just going to be a real tough team out there. You're not going to want to face them because they're going to be a physical team. And I know Tom Wilson was missing and his presence was missed. We'll talk about that later in the show. But the Washington Capitals have got to find a way to meet the Florida Panthers on their level of physicality. And Gudas has got to get put in his place. I'm not going to say what needs to get done to him, but something needs to happen so he understands that that's not the way the Washington Capitals play hockey. And you're not going to get away with that with us. And I think you know what I'm talking about. And I think that that's what's going to need to happen. Someone's going to need to be an enforcer in Tom Wilson's absence and set the record straight with Gudas. I mean, he's gone away with too many indiscretions out there, shall we say. He seems to just be getting away with whatever he wants. You know, that play with Hathaway when he threw him into the ice, that happened after the whistle. And then you think about that high stick that hit Tom Wilson in the face in game 1. I know that's not the one that led to his injury, but still, he thinks that he can get away with murder. And as up to right now, he has got away with murder. So some guy on the Washington Capitals is going to have to take some initiative and put these Florida Panthers in their place. They've done it all the entire game, and I've heard things on Twitter. They're saying, well, what are you trying to say, that they should pick fights with everyone? What I'm saying they need to do is they need to meet the Florida Panthers on the same level of physicality that they're hitting at us. That's what we have to do. We have to hit fire with fire. And, you know, I don't know if this is Peter Laviolette hockey where he doesn't want to have this physical game. I know when Barry Trotz was pushing the buttons and pulling the strings for the Capitals, he would dial in a physical game. So maybe that's Peter Laviolette's game. Maybe his thing is, you know, don't get into fights or you're going to spend too much time in the penalty box. And there's some truth to that. I mean, it's not an invalid point, but this Florida Panthers team, much like game 1, they were just running the Washington Capitals into the boards, throwing them onto the ground, and we did nothing about it. Why did no one drop the gloves and take on one of these players that was trying to do that? Most notably, Gudas. He seems to be kind of just the snarly guy that he's almost worse than a Tom Wilson, you know, how people view him outside the league. I mean, kind of unprovoked. I mean, I know that Hathaway kind of got up to him a little bit like that, but then after the whistle, Gudas threw Hathaway into the ice. It's not going to be that cannot stand. They need to fix that situation quick. Otherwise, it's going to be the end of the series because, between that and them getting great goal scoring production out of their players, we all know that the Florida Panthers were stacked with goal scorers, and they came out to play tonight, and they made it apparent in an embarrassing game, 5-1. The Capitals lose. How are they going to turn this around before it gets out of hand? I know I'm not trying to horribilize it. I know that the series is tied 1-1, but that kind of leaves a negative taste in your mouth. 5-1. That is what I will call a statement loss. The Capitals have got to find a way to turn it around. They only got one goal tonight from Nick Backstrom. And Ovechkin said, "We knew it was going to be a tough, long series. Nothing to do right now." This is him speaking, so a little bit of broken English. "Just move on and forget about it. It doesn't matter the score, 1-0 or 10-0. We still lost." If you compare the two games, they were two different games. Bounces, you know what I mean? Mistakes. Capitals captain Alex Ovechkin after the 5-1 loss in game 2, and I'm going to paraphrase it here for you because this is a family show. Crap happens. Move on. 1-1. How I said it's a good scenario for us, which you're going to have to kind of translate that on your own. What he's saying in that is, it's a good scenario that the series is tied. It's not like the Capitals are down 2 games, but nonetheless, they have to fix this physical situation. They are going to be playing at Capital One Arena on Saturday, and it just seems like it's fallen on deaf ears. What are they going to do about that physical game? It's just a glaring thing out there. And then the poor net minding, and then the poor defense. This was just a poor game all around. And like I say, they have to find a way to do it. We have a tight series going back to Washington. Looking forward to playing in front of our fans, Nick Backstrom said. And Nick Backstrom is, just trying to lessen the blow of the loss. But, the thing of it is that the Washington Capitals have not played particularly well at home this year. So hopefully they can turn it around. Hopefully everyone at Capital One Arena can really up their game and just really scream and, kind of rattle that Florida team, because it was a rough game to watch out there. And it almost seemed like a unrecognizable team compared to game 1. All right, after the break here, I'm going to break down the game, the highlights, the lowlights, and there are some lowlights to talk about in this game. But first, summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks. Make sure that everyone has a bar so you're fueled for the summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bars, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars or Puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means that the Built Bars you eat are healthy and actually enjoy doing it. Have you tried the Built Puffs? We are going crazy for the Puffs. They come in crazy flavors like banana cream pie and even churro. Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like churro and it has only 140 calories? Sign me up. If that's not enough flavor for you, you might want to try the mixed box. The mixed box comes with 12 flavors and bars and puffs. Built Bars make the perfect snack on the go. Know what my favorite flavor is? It is the churro. I love the churro. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. So go to Built.com to get all your favorites: banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, and so many more. They are all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. Check them out at Built.com. So go to Built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. That's use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, in this next segment here, we're going to break down the game and just talk about what went wrong in this game. And just to start off, it was Vanecek versus Bobrovsky. And that was a pretty good match out there. I know what I said in the previous podcast, that Bobrovsky has had issues in net in the postseason. That was not the case tonight. Statistics are not always accurate, as it turns out. Tom Wilson was out. That was the most noticeable thing. If you don't think that Tom Wilson has an impact on this team, how did the Capitals play tonight? Do I think the Capitals would have won tonight if Tom Wilson was playing? Maybe, but probably still not. But his physical presence would have made a difference. And, he scored the first goal of the game, number one. So, I mean, just his goal scoring alone, plus his intimidation factor is huge. Ovi has 71 playoff goals, 77 and 72 playoff record for Coach Laviolette. Forsling and Hathaway get tangled up to start off the game. And that's what I'm just talking about. It started off as just kind of a physical, heavy game right from the start. Florida applying heavy pressure halfway through the first on the PP from the Backstrom penalty. TJ Oshie nearly got a goal off the post. So to start off the game, they were getting some offensive production. They were getting shots on net, which is half the battle. Sometimes you see those games and they don't even get any shots on net. And then that's when you really have to worry about how things are going. TJ Oshie, like I said, almost got that goal off the post. Florida getting great shots on net, but haven't found the back of the net yet here in the first. And then Ekblad, goal off a deflection, a Caps player. It looked to be Faravari. Panthers get the 1-0 lead with 3:40 left in the first period. Ekblad with a point shot that deflects in. So that was the icebreaker there, and that was, a story of things to come. Barkov, goal stuffs up close. That was one of the ones where Barkov was right up front, and Vitek Vanecek had to kind of position himself from one side of the net to the other real quick, but not fast enough. Vanecek sprawling, trying to make the save. 2-0 Panthers. Panthers go up 2-0 with 2:02 left in the first period. Barkov at the doorstep. Capitals now to the PK with 1:54 left in the first. Delay of game penalty. Washington down 2-0. And then Duclair shoves Van Riemsdyk well after the whistle. And this is what I'm talking about. This kind of just reminded me of this. These are all my game notes that I took. The refs had their whistles in their pocket in this game. Duclair shoved Van Riemsdyk much after the whistle. At the end of the first period, nothing was done about it. And that's what I'm just saying. It almost seems like a prison scene where, you got these young inmates in there and they're just smacking them around and no one's standing up for themselves. Well, guess what? The Florida Panthers realize that we can kind of throw the Capitals around like a rag doll and they're not going to do nothing about it. If there's any Capitals players that happen to listen to this podcast, listen to what I'm saying. Up your physical game if you want to get back into the series, or it's going to be curtains for this team and you're going to be setting up tea time. So get it together before it's too late. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, it's not really debatable out there. It's not even net minding and goal. It's upping the physical game. I know I've talked about it the last couple games, and I don't want to go over the top here with it. But, when I was watching this game, it was a bit frustrating that the Capitals did not have an answer for any of that. It was just all game. It was that Duclair thing. It was the Gudas thing. It was just all game long that they were just kind of throwing the Capitals around like a rag doll, and they did nothing about it. All right. So then in the second period, Gudas again with a late hit on Hathaway. When are the Caps going to put him in his place? Both got a penalty on that. Nick Backstrom power play goal from up close, impossible angle. 2-1 Panthers. Capitals get on the board. Some excitement in the game. And, just kind of Nick Backstrom doing Nick Backstrom things, which is just sharpshooting from a sharp angle on the right side of the net. Even Bobrovsky had to kind of look in the air and go, are you serious, Backstrom, right now? How did this happen? He thought he had the gap closed between his body and the post, but he didn't. And Nick Backstrom was a sharpshooter and got it in there. Wow, what an angle. 27 seconds later, Marchman got a goal. It was 3-1 Panthers. Panthers come right back and make it 3-1. Game with 16:49 left in the second. Then Reinhart to Lindell, goal 4-1 Panthers. Florida goes up 4-1 on a nice 2-on-1 from the Panthers with 4:36 left in the second. And this is when the wheel was really starting to wobble for the Washington Capitals. And at this point, it was that physical game, and then they were just getting all kinds of goal scoring. It would have taken a team of extreme mental toughness to overcome that team. The Florida Panthers were throwing everything at the Washington Capitals. They pulled that kitchen sink out of the wall and they threw it right at the Washington Capitals, and it knocked the Capitals flat on the ground. Florida goes up 5-1 with 2:28 left in the second period on a goal by Verhaeghe. End of the second, Panthers 5, Capitals 1. Shots on goal 24-18. Washington at the end of second. And then Ilya Samsonov, who came in, he should have been warming in the bullpen earlier. Ilya Samsonov in net to start the third period. Capitals, Washington down 5-1. And it's just one of the things with the net minding, and I'm not going to get into this too much. I'll talk about it in the later segment of the show, but they cannot get consistency. After game one, everyone was talking about Vanecek and, pounding their chest saying, I told you about Vanecek. He's such a great netminder. Those same people, look him up on Twitter, have totally turned on him. So Ilya Samsonov in the net to start the third period for the Capitals. Vitek Vanecek let 5 goals in on 18 shots. Moving on, Hathaway with a 10-minute misconduct. Ilya Samsonov has faced almost as many shots, 17 in one period, as Vitek Vanecek did in the first 2 periods. And guess what? He did not allow a goal in. So guess who's starting in Game 3? If there's anyone with common sense, Ilya Samsonov is starting in Game 3. Vanecek went 13 of 18. Samsonov went 17 of 17. Oshie appeared to be in some discomfort skating off there after getting tangled with Marchment. And that was one of the things, too, that, TJ Oshie always plays bigger than he is, and he did tonight as well. And that's the last thing we need is someone like Oshie or one of these great goal scorers to get injured. Just someone with a winning pedigree. I know that Oshie is not one of the top 3 scorers on the team, but he has a great hockey IQ. It's through the roof. He has a Harvard hockey IQ if you just see him play out on the ice. Then Johansson got plastered by Hornquist. So, this is what I'm talking about the entire game, and guess what? No response. Hathaway called for boarding. Okay, so Hathaway did something there. It seems like Hathaway's the only one that's got a set on the team that's actually taking on the Florida Panthers. Hathaway called for boarding Hornquist at 9:54. Final, Capitals 5-1 to the Panthers in Game 2. Series all tied up 1-1. Game 3 is Saturday afternoon at Capital One Arena. Panthers defeat Capitals 5-1. It's a best-of-7 series that is tied 1-1. So we got to hope that home cooking is what the Washington Capitals are looking for, because eating on the road made them sick tonight. They feasted on these Panthers, and it made them sick. And let's hope that they can turn it around at home. Capitals will not practice on Friday and will hold media availability at 9 a.m. at the team hotel. I may have another podcast for you tomorrow. We only usually do these Monday through Friday, but I might do another one since it is the playoffs. It all depends on what time I have, but the Capitals have got to find a way to turn this around before it is too late. And I don't want to get too down on this team. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer on this, because I'm really not. I understand what Alex Ovechkin was saying. This is only one game, because the thing of it is they could go home and play the Panthers on Saturday, and they could have a similar outcome as far as score goes, except in reverse. Say the Capitals win 5-1, and all will be forgotten. And that's the thing about it is that, winning really kind of takes the stink off of a poor game. And that's what I'm talking about, Capitals fan. I know I'm all worked about this, because you want to know something? I care. I followed this team a long time, and I know that they made it to the Stanley Cup, but I still want them to do well. And, that's what I still have faith in this team. I'm not, throwing my hands in and saying, that this Capitals team is done. I just think they need to work on some things. And I think that everyone would agree on that. All right, after the break here, we are going to talk about the goaltending situation. Yes, the goaltending situation needs to be addressed. But first, BetOnline is the #1 source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball, and this weekend's Run to the Roses as the Kentucky Derby is back. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, now make your own. Thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen. For your next listen, check out Locked On Now podcasts, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So in this final segment here, we are going to talk about the net minding situation for the Washington Capitals and what they have to do to win. What are their keys of success if they want to move on into the next round, or at least let's not even have goals that far down the road. How are they going to win game number 3? I think you know where I'm going here is that the Capitals, if they're getting a directive from Peter Laviolette to not play a physical game, maybe I need to have a conversation with Peter Laviolette. They need to up their physical game to meet the Florida Panthers so they can at least compete on a higher level. Because like I say, just reading over my game notes in that previous segment, they had their way with the Washington Capitals, but net minding. Let's get to the task at hand. Is that the Washington Capitals, they knew that this was an issue in the beginning of the year. I did a podcast on this last summer on my previous podcast where I talked about the net minding situation. It was one of the first episodes I ever did. It was entitled The Net Minding Situation. And just to kind of look back on the Washington Capitals net minding situation, what it was is that it was supposed to be Henrik Lundqvist, who was going to be the netminder for the Washington Capitals, and Ilya Samsonov was going to back him up. Well, let's just kind of turn back time here. If you guys remember what happened, Henrik Lundqvist had a heart condition, an underlying heart condition, did not play one game with the Washington Capitals. So then it was Ilya Samsonov and question mark. They had Vitek Vanecek, who was, one of the better netminders, and AHL Hershey got thrust into action, and he played pretty good. Last year, you can't really argue about the fact that Vitek Vanecek played great hockey and then made it all the way to the playoffs, and in a fluke accident, he kind of went into the splits and got injured, and that was it for Vitek Vanecek, and the Capitals fell shortly thereafter. So they knew the situation going into the offseason last year that it was Ilya Samsonov and Vitek Vanecek, two young netminders. At the time, it was the youngest tandem in the NHL, an unproven commodity. This is a team that preaches all the time about a window that's open, but it's closing more and more, and they're in win now mode and yada, yada, yada. Well, if this team is in win now mode and that's what their MO is, that's what they want to do is to win now, then they need a good netminder. And that's the thing is they did nothing to address the situation in net. They did nothing. And in the playoffs here, they called up Zach Fucale, which I think is a good idea. But let's not get it down to game 7 before he put him in there. If the Capitals struggle throughout this series and they don't have any luck with either netminder, Vitek Vanecek or Ilya Samsonov, they need to go with number 3. And I'm not saying that he's going to be Superman and go in there and fly in there in his cape and fix everything. But he did play pretty good in Hershey this year, and he played good he played well rather for the Capitals in the games that he played. I think he had one off game, if memory serves. So, but in any case, they cannot go down with a ship with Samsonov and Vitek Vanecek. Otherwise, I think there's going to be a lot of other people trying to answer questions in the offseason, most notably Brian McClellan. And I'm not trying to be dramatic here, but I think if the Capitals make a first-round exit and they did nothing to rectify the goaltending situation, he may be looking for a new job. I think that Brian McClellan will be looking for a new job if the Capitals make a first-round exit. He is the general manager of the team, and he did nothing to rectify the situation in net. This was a situation that has been known for a long time, and he did nothing about it. When I talked to JJ Regan last month, one of the things he said is they should have just picked up a veteran minder and hoped that maybe he caught fire. Maybe one of those guys that was on the chart there during free agency, they should have just signed one of them. It would have been worthwhile just to see what they had, because now what are they left with? They don't have that veteran netminder out there. I mean, the most veteran netminder on the team is Phoenix Copley, and he's not exactly the greatest goaltender in the world either. So the Capitals have got some big decisions to make. Hopefully they can make it past this series and they can make a deep run. But there are going to be people that have to answer questions if the Washington Capitals make an early exit. This isn't something that was thrust upon them. This isn't like one of the goalies got injured late in the season. This has been an issue for a long time, and they've done zero to take care of it. So that is what I'm going to say is going to happen if the Capitals make a first-round exit. I would not be surprised at all if Brian McClellan loses his job over this. This is, especially Alex Ovechkin chasing the goal title, and, all these players in this nucleus of this win now mode are getting older. They're not getting any younger, and we squandered and we wasted another season. I'm not saying that goaltending can fix everything, and I know a lot of people talk to me on Twitter and they say, Dan, it's not all, quit blaming the goaltenders all the time. It's the defense. Touche. I agree with you. It's not just the goaltending. They need to rectify many areas in this game, and that's why I talked about a rebuild, a few weeks ago. So I do think changes are coming with this team if they do not make it past the first round. I would be very surprised and, kind of dumbfounded if they just go into the next season just like they were now. If they start camp next year and it's game number 1 of the regular season and it's Vitek Vanecek and Ilya Samsonov, my head's going to blow up. I don't know what's going to happen, but it just doesn't make any sense that they went down with this. There's some really smart hockey minds, and there's a lot of people that throw things at me. They say, well, they're so close to the cap, they could have not afforded it. Nonsense. They could have moved someone out of the game, out of the team to make room for a netminder. You think about last year, Craig Anderson or whoever they had on the team. They could have even used someone like him on the Washington Capitals this season, for example, because look at what he did in Buffalo. And, they could have used someone like that with, just a veteran netminder, kind of a steady hand that's been around the league for a while that can say, you young guys, maybe you sit this one out, and Peter Laviolette's going to have me play this one. I know that's not how things go. But anyway, Peter Laviolette would probably play him just based on his performance. So anyway, that's what the Washington Capitals have to do. If they make a quick exit, is they need to fix a netminder, because let's face it, what they're dealing with right now is Samsonov, Vanecek, and Fucale. That's it. That's all she wrote for this. So, I mean, unless, one of the forwards or defensemen want to strap on goalie pads, that's what they're all in on. And I know it's the consistency that worries me so much about it, because Vanecek, who was so good in game number 1, was so bad in this game. And that's if you could summarize the Washington Capitals netminders, that would be it. Inconsistent. Samsonov played well, but he could play horrible the next one. You just don't know what you have. There's no Braden Holtby, some steady Eddie that goes in there and you know what you got. There's no Max Scherzer going on the mound and knowing, you know what, we're going to get a win tonight. There's no one like that anymore in net for the Washington Capitals. They don't even have a Grubauer or anything like that anymore. So maybe, it's in-house. Maybe it's Hunter Shepard. Maybe it is Fucale. Maybe it's, Phoenix Copley. Who the heck knows? But all I know is that the Capitals have got to do something about net. That is glaring more than anything. They do have some depth in Hershey in the defense position and that kind of thing, but they still could use some help if you take a look at that. And, I've talked to some people that are like, okay, you need to make change in defense. Who are you taking out? It's a good question. Ask yourself that question right now. Make changes in defense. Who are you taking out? Dmitry Orlov? Are you taking John Carlson out? Are you taking Jensen out? Who are you taking out of that lineup? Trevor Van Riemsdyk? Who? If you look at it, in a vacuum, it's really hard to look at it that way. Who would you take out of the lineup right now? Knee-jerk reaction. Okay, we'll give you another defenseman. Who are you pulling out of the lineup to put him in there? Who? That's a really tough question for the Capitals to answer, because none of those guys in a vacuum are horrible players. Dmitry Orlov is an amazing defenseman, a great offensive. He's rugged and he's tough and he can score goals. And he's got, he makes those hip checks and everything out there. He's so dialed in, and he's a great hockey player. Who are you going to get rid of? John Carlson? John Carlson, an all-star who was probably considered one of the greatest Washington Capitals defensemen of all time. Trevor Van Riemsdyk, solid. Martin Fehervary, solid. Who are you pulling out of this Capitals lineup to put in there? So it's not as easy, when people at me on Twitter and they go, well, it's not defense. Okay, to those same people, who are you pulling out of the lineup and plugging in with that? It's more stark and easy to understand when I talk about netminding, because it is so glaring and it's so obvious. So that's what the Capitals are facing as they go through this. And, like I say, if they get a win next game, all will be forgotten. And I'll probably forget about this long diatribe that I've given to you guys today. But, the sting of this horrible loss has left me a little bitter, I got to be honest with you. But I still am optimistic about this team. It's still the same nucleus as long as Ovechkin and Backstrom, John Carlson, TJ Oshie, just this great lineup of players. I still have a lot of faith, and I still have a lot of pride in this team. And I still think that they can do it. That's one of the things, is they just need a netminder to catch fire. And that would be game changer. It would be a game changer. So, despite what I've said tonight, some of it comes off a little negative, but, a lot of it is coming from my heart. This is what I'm saying, what I'm seeing on the ice. But, at my core, I still think that this Capitals team has what it takes to go far in the playoffs. Dare I say, maybe a Stanley Cup. I know it didn't seem obvious tonight, but I still think there's a chance. All right, this has been Locked On Capitals for today. I'm so glad you decided to join me. Like I said, I might do another one of these tomorrow. I got the family's not going to be in the house tomorrow, so I'm going to have the house to myself. So it's going to be a podcasting extravaganza. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL, from the first round matchups to each Stanley Cup final. Locked On NHL covers the playoffs like no other. Hear the latest news and opinions from local experts every Monday through Friday. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And I apologize for that one. The ad read did not want to load on there, so I had to do it by memory, verbatim. So anyway, thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen today. And that's what I'm talking about, making it your first listen and making it your last listen for the day, as I'm recording this at 11:16 p.m. Central. Thank you so much again for joining me, and I will talk to you guys again next time. If not tomorrow, I will have one after the game on Saturday. Thank you for listening.